Picture this. You've been sitting in your favorite chair for a couple of hours, watching television, reading, or just resting after lunch. And when you finally stand up, your feet feel like they belong to someone else. Numb around the toes, heavy through the sole. Maybe a dull aching in the arch that takes a few careful steps to shake off. Or perhaps it's the other version. You wake up in the morning and the first few steps to the bathroom are stiff and tender in a way they never used to be. If either of those moments sounds familiar, I want you to know something important before we go any further. What you are feeling is not simply the inevitable cost of getting older. It is your circulation telling you something specific. And circulation, unlike a lot of things that change after 60, responds remarkably well to the right kind of daily attention. I'm Dr. Naira Stein, and I've spent years helping older adults understand the physical changes happening in their bodies, not to frighten them, but to give them clear, practical information they can actually act on. Today, I want to walk you through 5 gentle foot stretches, demonstrated step by step, that directly improve circulation in the feet and lower legs. These take less than 10 minutes. You can do them in a chair, on the edge of your bed, or on a mat on the floor. And if you do them consistently, ideally every morning and again in the evening, most people notice a meaningful difference within 2 to 3 weeks. Stay with me, because I'm also going to explain the specific reason each stretch works, so you understand what you're doing and why. That understanding, in my experience, is what turns a good habit into a lasting one. Why foot circulation declines after 60, and why it matters more than most people realize. Before we get to the stretches themselves, I want to spend a moment on the biology, because it changes how you think about everything that follows. The feet are the furthest point in the body from the heart. Blood travels down through the arterial system without much difficulty. Gravity assists the journey. The challenge is the return trip. Used blood, carrying waste products and carbon dioxide, must travel back up through the venous system against gravity, all the way from the toes to the chest. In younger adults, this return journey is powered by the valves inside the leg veins, small one-way gates that prevent blood from falling back down, and by the mechanical pumping action of the calf and foot muscles, which squeeze the surrounding veins with every step and push the blood upward. After 60, several things happen simultaneously that compromise this system. The vein walls lose some of their elasticity, the valves become less precise, the calf muscles, if they're not being used regularly, lose both volume and their pumping efficiency. And the small capillary networks in the feet, the tiniest blood vessels that actually deliver oxygen and warmth to the tissue, become less responsive to temperature and pressure changes, which is why cold feet and numbness become so common. The lymphatic system, which runs alongside the venous system and clears fluid and cellular waste from the tissues, is affected by the same slowdown. It has no pump of its own at all. It relies entirely on muscle movement to propel fluid upward. When foot and calf movement decreases, lymphatic drainage in the feet slows, contributing to the puffiness, heaviness, and morning stiffness that many older adults experience, but attribute simply to age. Here is the part worth holding on to. These are mechanical problems, and mechanical problems respond to mechanical solutions. The 5 stretches that follow are designed to activate the specific muscles and connective tissues in the foot and lower leg that drive circulation upward. They stimulate the venous pump, encourage lymphatic flow, restore flexibility in the plantar fascia and ankle joint, and improve the nerve responsiveness of the foot's surface tissue. Each one does something specific and documented. None of them require any equipment, any particular fitness level, or any prior experience with stretching. What you need before you begin. Nothing complicated. A sturdy chair with a flat seat, not a low, soft sofa. A yoga mat or folded towel if you prefer to do any of the floor-based movements. Comfortable, loose clothing that doesn't restrict around the calf or ankle. And bare feet or socks without tight elastics at the top. That last point matters more than it sounds. Tight sock elastics act as a tourniquet around the lower calf, restricting the very venous return we are trying to improve. If the sock elastic leaves a mark on your skin when you remove it, that sock is working against your circulation throughout the day. Have a glass of water nearby. Gentle stretching and improved circulation both work better in a well-hydrated body, and stretching in the morning before adequate fluid intake can make tendons and fascia feel temporarily stiffer. Take one moment before you begin to observe your feet. Look at the color. Are they pale or slightly bluish around the toes? Press one fingertip firmly into the top of your foot for 5 seconds and release. Watch how quickly the color returns to the pressed area. In good circulation, the color should return within 2 seconds. A. Slower return. 3, 4, 5 seconds is a simple visual indicator of reduced peripheral blood flow that you can use to measure your progress over the coming weeks. Stretch 1. The ankle pump. Why it works. The ankle pump is the most fundamental circulatory exercise available to anyone over 60, and it is the one most consistently recommended by vascular physiotherapists for a specific reason. The calf muscle, the gastrocnemius and soleus, is sometimes called the peripheral heart of the lower leg. When it contracts, it squeezes the deep veins running through it and propels blood upward toward the thigh and beyond. The ankle pump is the most direct way to activate this mechanism without standing or walking. It is safe for virtually every level of mobility, can be performed immediately upon waking before the feet even touch the floor, and produces a measurable increase in venous return velocity within seconds of beginning. How to do it. Sit upright in your chair with both feet flat on the floor and your back gently supported. Lift both heels off the floor simultaneously while keeping your toes in contact with the ground. Then lower them back down. That is the first half of the movement. Now reverse it. Keep the heels on the floor and lift the toes and the front of the foot upward toward your shins. Then lower them back down. That full sequence, heels up, heels down, toes up, toes down, is one complete ankle pump cycle. Perform this slowly and deliberately. Each direction of movement should take approximately 2 seconds. Feel the calf muscle engage as the heel rises, and feel the front of the shin, the tibialis anterior, engage as the toes lift. These are the two primary muscle groups driving the venous pump in the lower leg. Begin with 20 complete cycles. As this becomes comfortable over the first week, increase to 30, then 40. For maximum circulatory benefit, perform this stretch at the start of the morning before standing, again after any period of sitting longer than 90 minutes, and as the first movement in your evening stretching session. The ankle pump is not just a warm-up for the other 4 stretches. It is, by itself, one of the most effective tools you have. Stretch 2. The toe spread and curl. Why it works. The toes and the ball of the foot are served by a dense network of capillaries, some of the smallest blood vessels in the body. These capillaries depend on the movement of the intrinsic foot muscles, the small muscles that live entirely within the foot itself, to maintain their responsiveness and tone. In most adults over 60, these muscles have become progressively inactive due to the combination of supportive footwear, reduced barefoot time, and decreased overall movement. Inactive intrinsic foot muscles mean sluggish capillary circulation in the toes, which produces the numbness, coldness, and tingling that many older adults experience throughout the day. The toe spread and curl directly reactivates these muscles through a simple range of motion movement that most people have not performed intentionally in decades. How to do it. Remain seated with your feet flat on the floor. Lift one foot slightly so that only the heel maintains light contact and the toes are free to move. Begin by spreading all 5 toes as wide apart from each other as possible. Imagine trying to create visible space between each toe. Hold that spread position for a count of 5. You may feel the arch of the foot engage and the ball of the foot broaden slightly. This is normal and correct. Now curl all 5 toes downward toward the floor, as if you are trying to grip the floor with them. Not forcefully, but with clear, intentional engagement. Hold the curl for a count of 5. Then release the curl and return to neutral before repeating the spread. Complete 10 spread and curl cycles on each foot. Many people find this movement surprisingly difficult at first. The intrinsic muscles of the foot are genuinely weak in most sedentary adults, and asking them to move independently from the larger ankle and calf muscles requires neural reconnection as much as muscle strength. If the toes move partially or awkwardly in the beginning, that is expected. With consistent daily practice, most people find the movement becomes significantly more fluid within 10 days, which reflects real improvement in the neuromuscular connection between the brain and the foot's intrinsic muscles. Stretch 3. The plantar fascia release. Why it works. The plantar fascia is the thick band of connective tissue running along the underside of the foot from the heel to the base of the toes. It acts as a structural cable supporting the arch, and it is involved in every step you take. After 60, the plantar fascia, like all connective tissue, loses water content and becomes less elastic, which is one reason the first steps of the morning feel stiff and sometimes tender. But there is a circulatory dimension to this as well. When the plantar fascia is tight and inflexible, it compresses the small blood vessels running through and beneath it, restricting blood flow to the heel and arch throughout the night and during long periods of sitting. Releasing it deliberately, through gentle stretching rather than aggressive manipulation, allows those vessels to decompress and blood flow to resume more freely. How to do it? For this stretch, you will use a simple prop, a tennis ball, a golf ball, or a smooth round stone of similar size. Place it on the floor in front of your chair. Place one bare foot on top of the ball, with the ball positioned just below the ball of the foot, the padded area just behind the toes. Apply gentle downward pressure, enough to feel the stretch, but not enough to create any sharp discomfort. Slowly roll the foot forward so the ball moves toward the arch, then toward the heel. The pace should be slow, 3 to 4 seconds to travel the full length of the foot. When you reach the heel, pause for a breath, then roll gently forward again. If you find a spot that feels particularly tight or tender, a place where the tissue seems to resist the ball's pressure, pause there for 10 to 15 seconds with steady, gentle pressure, rather than rolling through it quickly. That pause allows the fascia to respond to the sustained input. Continue for 90 seconds on each foot. You are looking for a sensation of release, a softening in the tissue, rather than pain. If any part of this stretch produces sharp or intense discomfort, reduce the pressure or discontinue and discuss with your healthcare provider. For the vast majority of people, the rolling pressure will feel like meaningful relief rather than discomfort, particularly in the arch. Perform this stretch before standing in the morning if possible. Placing the ball beside the bed and rolling each foot before the first steps of the day dramatically reduces the morning stiffness in the arch that so many older adults have come to accept as simply normal. Stretch 4. The seated calf stretch. Why it works. The calf muscle group, particularly the deep soleus muscle, which lies beneath the more visible gastrocnemius, is the primary driver of venous return from the lower leg. Research examining blood flow velocity in the deep veins of the leg has found that a properly stretched and active soleus muscle increases venous return by up to 70% compared to a shortened, sedentary one. The seated calf stretch specifically targets the soleus, rather than the more commonly stretched gastrocnemius, because the soleus is the muscle most responsible for the pumping function during seated and low-intensity activity, exactly the kind of activity pattern that dominates most older adults' daily lives. How to do it. Sit upright in your chair. Extend one leg in front of you with the heel resting on the floor and the toes pointing upward toward the ceiling. Loop a towel, a resistance band, or even a long scarf around the ball of the foot. Gently pull the ends of the towel toward you so that the toes are drawn further toward your shin, beyond the position they would reach on their own. Hold this pulled position for 30 seconds. You should feel a clear stretch deep in the calf, not at the back of the knee or in the Achilles tendon, but in the thick muscle belly of the calf itself. Breathe normally throughout the hold. Many people reflexively hold their breath during stretches, which counterproductively increases muscle tension. A slow exhale during the first few seconds of the stretch signals the nervous system to allow the muscle to lengthen. After 30 seconds, release and perform the same stretch on the other leg. Complete 3 holds per leg. As flexibility improves over the coming weeks, you will find that you can pull the toes further toward the shin with the same effort, a clear sign that the calf's resting length is increasing and its pumping capacity is being restored. If you don't have a towel or band nearby, place the heel of one foot on top of the toes of the other foot and use gentle downward pressure from the upper foot to draw the lower foot's toes toward the shin. This self-assisted variation is slightly less precise, but produces the same fundamental stretch. Stretch 5. The ankle circle and figure 8. Why it works. The ankle joint is surrounded by a complex network of tendons, ligaments, and synovial tissue that supports the range of motion required for every step, step down, and weight shift. Like all joints, the ankle depends on movement to maintain the health of its cartilage. Cartilage has no direct blood supply and receives its nutrients through the movement of synovial fluid, which is physically pressed into and out of the cartilage with each rotation. A stiff, restricted ankle joint is not simply uncomfortable. It is a joint whose cartilage is receiving less nutritional exchange with every hour it remains immobile. The ankle circle restores the full range of motion that keeps the joint's internal environment healthy. And because the ankle is encircled by several major veins and lymphatic vessels, full-range ankle movement mechanically compresses and releases these vessels in sequence, creating a gentle but effective pumping action throughout the entire lower leg. How to do it. Sit comfortably with one leg crossed over the other so that the ankle of the top leg is free to move without touching the floor. Take hold of the shin of the crossed leg lightly with both hands to keep the leg stable, ensuring all movement comes from the ankle itself rather than the whole leg. Begin with slow, clockwise circles. The circle should be as large as the ankle joint comfortably allows, toes pointing fully down at the bottom of the circle, toes pulling as far back as comfortable at the top. Move slowly enough to feel the slight resistance as the ankle passes through each quadrant of the rotation. Complete 10 full clockwise circles, then reverse direction for 10 counterclockwise circles. After the circles, trace a figure 8 pattern with the toes, a sideways infinity symbol. The figure 8 takes the ankle through a diagonal range of motion that the simple circle does not fully capture, engaging the ligaments on the inner and outer edges of the ankle in a way that directly improves joint stability alongside flexibility. 10 figure 8s in each direction on each foot. The ankle circle and figure 8 are the stretches I most often recommend for the end of the sequence because they integrate the mobility work done in the previous 4 movements into a dynamic, multi-directional range. Many people report that the ankle circles, particularly in the first few weeks, feel rough or produce a grinding sensation on one or both sides of the joint. This is usually the feeling of stiff synovial tissue moving through a range it hasn't visited in some time. It typically smooths out within 1 to 2 weeks of daily practice. If the sensation is accompanied by pain rather than simply resistance, have the joint evaluated before continuing. Here is how to bring all 5 into a single flowing 10-minute practice. In the morning, before you stand from bed, begin with 20 ankle pumps from stretch 1, while still lying flat or sitting on the edge of the mattress. Place the tennis ball on the floor beside the bed and perform the plantar fascia release from stretch 3 on each foot before your first steps. This alone will change the quality of those first steps more than almost any other single change. Once seated in your morning chair, move through the toe spread and curl from stretch 2, the seated calf stretch from stretch 4, and the ankle circles from stretch 5 in sequence. The whole seated sequence takes approximately 7 minutes at an unhurried pace. In the evening, repeat the ankle pumps and the ankle circles, and add the plantar fascia release again if you've had a long day on your feet or experienced noticeable swelling. Consistency matters more than perfection. 5 minutes every morning is meaningfully better than an occasional 30-minute session. The circulatory and lymphatic benefits of these stretches accumulate through daily repetition. Each session contributes to a gradual restoration of vascular tone, fascial flexibility, and intrinsic muscle strength that cannot be achieved in a single session regardless of duration. In the first week, most people notice that the morning foot stiffness reduces in duration. Where the first 10 steps of the day previously felt stiff and tentative, they begin to feel more fluid. The feet feel warmer earlier in the morning. This is a direct result of improved overnight circulation combined with the pre-standing stretching routine. By the end of the second week, if you repeat the color return test described at the beginning, pressing a fingertip into the top of the foot and observing how quickly the color returns, most people find the return time has shortened. This is a measurable indicator of improved peripheral circulation that requires no equipment and takes 5 seconds to perform. By the third and fourth week, the ankle range of motion improves to the point where the circles feel noticeably smoother. The calf stretch allows a greater degree of pull with the same effort, and the intrinsic muscles of the foot, the ones engaged in the toe spread and curl, begin to move with more precision and less effort than they did in the early days. These are not dramatic transformations. They are steady, consistent improvements in function that compound quietly over weeks and months into something that feels genuinely significant. Warmer feet, less morning stiffness, lighter legs through the afternoon, and the kind of sure-footedness that makes every staircase and uneven surface feel less like a negotiation. These stretches are appropriate for the vast majority of older adults with general circulation concerns, morning foot stiffness, cold feet, or mild ankle swelling. They are not a substitute for medical evaluation in specific situations that deserve clinical attention. If one foot or leg is significantly more swollen than the other, particularly if the swelling appeared rapidly and is accompanied by warmth, redness, or pain in the calf. Please see a doctor today. This combination can indicate a deep vein thrombosis that requires immediate evaluation. If you have been diagnosed with peripheral arterial disease, a condition in which the arteries themselves are narrowed, please discuss an exercise and stretching program with your vascular specialist before beginning, as some movements are modified for arterial versus venous conditions. And if foot numbness is constant rather than positional, present regardless of how long you have been sitting or lying, please have it evaluated, as persistent numbness can reflect nerve involvement that warrants investigation beyond a stretching program. There is something I find quietly moving about the feet. They carry you for an entire lifetime, often with very little deliberate attention, and the first sign of trouble, the stiffness, the coldness, the heaviness by evening, is so frequently attributed to age and left unaddressed. But the feet are not failing. They are responding, as all tissue responds, to what they are and are not given. Movement, flexibility work, and the restoration of mechanical circulation are things they can receive at any age, and they respond to those things at any age. 10 minutes in the morning, 5 in the evening. 5 stretches, done consistently, done gently, done with the understanding of why each one works and what it's doing for your tissue. That is what this conversation has been about. Not a promise of perfect health, but a specific, honest, and practical path toward feet that feel better, legs that drain more efficiently, and mornings that begin with greater comfort and confidence than they do right now. I'm Dr. Naira Stein. Your body is still listening to the signals you send it. These stretches are 5 of the clearest signals you can offer. I hope you'll begin tomorrow morning, and I hope the difference speaks for itself. Take good care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one.